streams that filter through this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the highest fishing hole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hello, sportsmen. You know, most successful deer hunters get their deer the first 2 days of the season, but those of us who just don't have that kind of luck have to spend more time in the woods. And we resort to some special techniques such as calling deer. You can call with a grunt call, or you can attract big bucks by rattling antlers. These methods aren't foolproof, but I'll show you how to try them anyway, so stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost with some practical methods for calling deer. It wasn't until the late 1980s that hunters began realizing the fact that deer can be called. The deer's ears are huge, with 5 times the surface area of a human's ear, and they respond to a variety of noises, especially during mating season, which is when we hunt deer. One noise a buck makes when he's trailing a doe is a low-pitched grunt. Did you hear that? Let's listen again. Now, you can duplicate the grunting of a buck with a grunt tube or a grunt call. My favorite is this little plastic one with a slide on it to vary the pitch. Instead of blowing this call, I inhale, pulling the air over the reed like this. Now, that's the sound of a buck. Push the slide halfway down, and you get the sound of a doe. And all the way down if you want to imitate the high-pitched sound of a fawn calling for its mother. Now, the most effective call you're going to want to use if you're hunting bucks is that deep-pitched grunt of a buck as he approaches a doe in heat. Now, this call can attract another buck. Now, the buck isn't coming because he's attracted to a grunting buck. He's coming because he's attracted to the doe that he figures is nearby, a doe in heat. So he's actually looking for that doe, and it's the noise of the buck that tells him that the hot doe is in the area. Just a few little grunts are needed. Don't overdo it. You don't use a grunt call like a duck call. You use it sparingly. Now, if a buck, say, is walking away from you and you want to stop him, give him a couple of subdued grunts. Oftentimes, that buck will turn around, come back to investigate. That's how to use a grunt call. Now, another technique for calling is called rattling. And to rattle, you use a pair of antlers and click them together to imitate 2 bucks fighting, like this. Now, before hunting season in September, you'll often see bucks sparring. They're not fighting, they're just goofing around, testing their strength, seeing who's dominant. But during hunting season, there's generally just one reason that bucks fight, and that's because both of them want to mate with a doe that's standing nearby. Now, little bucks don't fight, only the more dominant breeding bucks that are 3 to 5 years old. They generally have big racks, big bodies, they're strong, and they really go at it in the battle. Here's some home video taken by Dick Giacino from Big Rapids that shows you the intensity of a mid-November battle between bucks. Amazing footage, isn't it? Well, now I'm going to tell you some 3 very important things if you're going to try rattling. Now, first, you have to realize you're imitating the fight of 2 big, dominant bucks, and the only deer that will come to investigate is another buck that considers himself to be a dominant breeding buck. Smaller bucks and does will run when they hear antlers clashing because they don't want anything to do with a fight, and rattling will scare them off. That big breeding buck will come in, though, looking for the doe he thinks is standing and watching the fight. So, don't rattle unless you're hunting for big bucks only. Secondly, don't rattle constantly. You want to rattle in a way that imitates bucks fighting. Then you pause a little bit. Click a couple times again. Now you can enhance this by thumping the ground, thrashing some branches, but After about 20 or 30 seconds, you want to stop for at least 5 minutes, and now comes principle number 3. When you're rattling, a buck can pinpoint where you're sitting by the sound, and as he comes in, his eyes will be open, the ears will be moving. If he catches you moving and rattling, well, he'll slip away, you'll never know he was there. So after 30 seconds of rattling, pick up your bow or gun and get ready. Be still, let the buck make the move. All the motion that you do while you're rattling can ruin the tactic if a buck sees you. Now, does rattling really work? Well, these rattling antlers here were sent to me by Dwayne Fink of Rocky Mountain House, Alberta, up in Canada. He got this buck by rattling. Now, here's a picture of Dwayne with another buck he rattled in, and his hunting buddy, Dr. Bruce Rudkin, rattled in this buck up in Alberta. Those bucks were taken in 1993, so rattling does work. Once again, the principles of grunting or rattling. Realize you're catering to the big bucks, the breeding bucks. For the most part, smaller bucks and does will usually run when they hear grunting or rattling. Secondly, use grunting and rattling sparingly. And thirdly, after 30 seconds or so, get ready. Don't get caught moving. Those are the basic principles for using the practical tactics of calling deer. Now, will they work for you in the late season? Maybe. Most of the does have already been bred, and the breeding bucks are looking for the last of the hot does. That's why rattling and grunting just might work for you in the late season. You know, when hunting season comes around, all hunters take vacations from work, we kiss our wives goodbye, and spend a few weeks hunting, right? Wrong. Most hunters who were married know there's a lot more negotiating that goes on for hunting than many of us care to admit. At last year's Hunting Awards banquet, Chris Dunlap fessed up to a situation that, well, it was one of the funniest hunting stories I've ever heard.
We got the message from the DNR that I had been selected to win. My wife happened to bring the registered letter to my place of work, and with some other stuff, and I opened it up and look, and it's like, holy cow, I cannot believe I actually won elk hunt. And my wife at this time was about 6-7 months pregnant. And I look on the thing, and it says, I won the September 7th elk hunt, which is the first time they've ran one on September 7th. And I'm thinking, man, that is a really familiar date. So I said, Linda, this is on September 7th, and I see her face go from one of joy with me to one somewhat less joyful. That was the exact date that she was due. So we kind of looked at each other, and she's looking for what am I going to do about this? And bottom line is we decided I had a cellular phone, and I had a beeper. And, last one, this is our second child that we're expecting. Last one took about 12, 14 hours. So I'm thinking, well, I'm only about 3 or 4 hours away. Maybe, use that beeper, get into this high technology, and we can make this thing happen. And
we really can, dear.
We can.
It'll work.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
And, at length, we talktalked about that. She decided, hey, let's do this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Real sweetheart, and she said, hey, this is important. Let's get this done, and besides the chances of this happening on that exact date, what's the chance? So the day before the hunt, we have to go to this DNR's class that they have in order to get your tag. So I'm all set to go, got the alarm set for 6 in the morning. I'm going to head up there with my dad. Half an hour before I'm ready to get up, she's tapping me on the shoulder, and I'm looking over at the alarm thinking, 5:30, geez, Linda, I've got another half an hour to go here. And she's saying, Chris, my water broke. And it's like, oh, no. Tell me, any day but now. It can't happen now.
You didn't go into the cellular phone routine.
No, the cellular phone thing was out. This is history by this point. So I want you to know I did the right thing. I took her to the hospital. I thought my elk hunt's gone, and we're at the hospital, and I'm thinking, the DNR, they've got to cut me some slack on this one. This is about as big as it gets. So I called them up and said, look, is there any way we can do this? I can't get there today. And they said, well, if you can get here the next morning, we'll do it for you special, put you through the class. So then my wife is in labor, And she's in labor and in labor and in labor, and it's looking like the next day might not happen. And I'm saying, you know, isn't there something we can do to get this thing going? But I'm being supportive, of course. Yes. It was her pain, seriously, that I was concerned about. And so she did deliver a healthy baby girl that's out there now. And I think she delivered about 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock. She was real wiped out after the delivery and was ready to go to sleep an hour later, which worked out real well. Because my dad had the van running out in the hospital parking lot. So I wished her well, and everybody told me that, geez, this is a cakewalk. You just walk up there and there's elk running around, and you grab one by the horn, and that's it. You know, you're on your way. So I thought, okay, I'll be back tomorrow, Linda. Well, it was a little tougher than that, and hunted for 3 days. My hunt was only 5 days long. It was the first time they had run this particular hunt this early in the year, so it was quite a difficult hunt. I was shot after 3 days. About 5 minutes before the deadline that you're allowed to shoot, we had spotted one. I was with a guide, and we had spotted 3 of them coming out of the woods. I was in a 4x4 at the time, and we were coming up over a hill, and we saw these 3 elk come out, and so I'm grabbing my gun, ripping out of the car, and trying to load and shouting to my dad, who's glassing them, to tell me, you know, which one's the biggest one. He tells me that it's the last one in the group, and by this time they're all wheeling around and heading in the other direction. Fortunately, the last one was the last to turn around, so I just leveled my gun, and just as he was turning, and I caught him. Since he was facing me, he was turning, he was in mid-wheel, caught him as he broadsided me on his way out, shot, and
that saga that began 9 months earlier.
ended successfully.
Yes. You had no idea 9 months earlier. Well, you were just romping around and thinking you were a big dude. What was going to happen 9 months from then?
Had no idea.
Had no idea. Now, there's an old joke that goes, I won't go through the joke, of course, and I won't have to, but did you name your daughter Broken Waters or Idling Van or,
No.
What's her name?
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie.
We were
That's
told
nice.
Elkie, but, you know,
Yeah.
we had to draw the line somewhere.
Okay, well, very good. You did good. What a story. Congratulations, Chris Dunlap.
Tim Major from Swartz Creek always has incredible recipes. This one is for venison and onion stew. You can see the pieces of venison in there, good lean venison, and the stuff on the top looks like cottage cheese, but it isn't, Tim.
No, it's feta cheese.
Feta cheese. Oh, and there's the
Green
onions.
cheese. And there's onions.
And
They're
what-
in there.
what else
Pearl
is in here?
onions. There's a little bit of cinnamon, salt, pepper. Not much. There's not much seasoning. The cinnamon really doesn't. Tomato
Cinnamon,
sauce.
huh?
There's some tomato sauce in there. And a little bit of water
But
to help
a little,
mix it up.
Is there red wine in there? Do I?
Yes, there's red wine vinegar also.
Well, okay. I
In
can't.
there.
I can't paw through this anymore. I'm going to have to scoop some out.
You're not going to be able to taste any of that stuff. The
Really?
alcohol now will cook out, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Well, now here you dig in.
Oh
some.
yeah.
Oh man, don't get all the cheese there, Tim. You got to save some for me. I love this.
I have some more over here on the side, Fred. I think that's going to
This-
be mine.
This is the most unique flavor I've ever tasted in a stew.
It's very different.
I don't miss the carrots. I don't miss the potatoes, green
don't need
beans,
'em.
peas, all that.
Don't
Just
need 'em.
onions and meat. The cheese.
Feta cheese.
That cinnamon.
Feta cheese
Feta cheese
and cinnamon.
and cinnamon. That cinnamon is
And it
incredible.
also has vinegar in it. But I like it with just a normal French bread sliced thin. That's fine. Or French bread sliced thick, whatever. Just so you can soak up all the good.
And I do mean good. I mean, this is, and this is a very happy moment for people who want a different kind of stew. Tim Major, this is revolutionizing the stew business.
Anytime.
Oh, this is great. What kind of season did hunters have this year in Michigan? Well, there are two schools of thought. Those who have got and those who have not. Last year we had a tremendous big buck night. I thought last year couldn't be topped, but so far, from what we've been hearing from those who have got, there have been some humongous bucks taken in 1994, especially in the southern lower peninsula. This year's Big Buck Night will be at least as impressive as last year's, maybe even better. We've heard from hunters who have taken bucks up to 21 points, outside spreads of 28 inches, and tines, get this, 17 inches long. Well, we haven't seen them yet, but next Thursday night will be the annual Practical Sportsman Big Buck Night, telecast statewide. It's an hour-long program, so check your local listings and set your VCRs if you're not going to be home. This Big Buck Night is going to be a parade of huge racks that'll go down in the record books. Well, that wraps up another Practical Sportsman show. Next week is Big Buck Night statewide. You're going to see some of the biggest racks this state has ever produced. If you haven't gotten your deer yet, get outdoors for muzzleloading season and late bow season. Hey, if you're dressed right, it's a great place to be. See you next week.
And she's in labor and in labor and in labor, and it's looking like the next day might not happen. And I'm saying, isn't there something we can do to get this thing going? But I'm being supportive, of course. Yes. It was her pain, seriously, that I was concerned about. And so she did deliver a healthy baby girl. It's out there now. And I think she delivered about 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock. She was real wiped out after the delivery and was ready to go to sleep an hour later, which worked out real well. because my dad had the van running.